achieved.
Welcome into Studio Day Heffrey, everybody, on a lovely Monday, a.k.a. the first day of Brian Broaddus on the G-Bag Nation, Mike Bassick on the KNC Masterpiece, and it is awesome. Super excited to add Broaddus, the greatest cowboy resource on the planet, to the same show with Gavin Dawson and myself, and love that Mike Bassick gets to be a good dad. How about that? Everybody's a winner. Okay, so make sure you're checking 105.3, 105.3. Man, you know, sometimes you have a bad video, a bad start to a video, and you're tempted to just hit the stop recording button and start it over because you stumble. But I'm a one-take man. I don't believe in that. I'm lazy. Anyway, Bill Barnwell, he writes for ESPN, and he's one of the good ones. He does a great job with projections. He does a great job with year to year, what's going to happen and all that stuff. And he's going division by division and doing predictions for what every team is going to do. And he's got 5 of them for the Cowboys. And the Jadeveon Clowney that I put here, that is not headline porn. That's real life from Bill Barnwell, who's a badass. So let's walk through his 5 predictions for the Cowboys and analyze it and see if we think they're all good ideas. Dallas Cowboys projected 2020 cap space $74 million. Now, that's before they obviously sign a bunch of people that they're losing right now. They got 25 free agents, I believe. So there's going to be a ton of turnover on this team. But he says, number 1, lock up Dak Prescott. Oh, so many of you are so angry right now. It's amazing to me how the guy who was 4th in total QBR last year, so many people are telling me, he sucks. Sports fans are wild. Dak is good. And so you give Dak his contract. That's how it works. Dak's good. You give him his contract. Quarterbacks don't stop getting good after 4 years. They continue to improve, usually through year 5 and year 6. So he's already very good, and he's probably improving. Now, sure, hey, you know what? I'll give a little credence to the Dak hater out there. Am I curious if you block really well and you have good weapons, and you got a good running back and all that, could I get good enough performance from a much cheaper quarterback? Is that intriguing? Is that interesting? Yes, it's intriguing and interesting. But intriguing and interesting is not the same as I'm willing to try it, excuse me, while trying to win a Super Bowl. And the Cowboys are trying to win a Super Bowl. So you don't intentionally get worse at quarterback while you're trying to win a Super Bowl. It's just not what you do, okay? Got it? Good. Let's see. What does Barnwell have to do here? He says the overwhelming evidence suggests the Cowboys have virtually no idea of what makes a good quarterback in the draft for 2 decades now. Because he mentions when they were ready to replace Romo, Jerry Jones had to get talked out of drafting Johnny Manziel. They only ended up with Dak because the Broncos beat them to trade up to get Paxton Lynch, and the Raiders took Connor Cook from them. That's who they wanted, Paxton Lynch and Connor Cook. And even that one I go back and forth on because everybody says how impossible it is to find a quarterback, and I agree it's not easy. It's not easy at all, and I don't want to go into the quarterback wilderness, especially not right now. You're going to extend Dak, and you're going to try to win a Super Bowl, and if it doesn't work out, then you'll know in a couple of years that you have to go a different direction and reboot this thing, which I don't know if Jerry will ever reboot it, but you might have to, and then we can talk about a different quarterback if Dak hasn't gotten much better and isn't a top 5 quarterback in the league. Deal? Deal. They also haven't tried to replace a quarterback. So, like, sure, after Aikman, they didn't have a good quarterback until Romo, who was an undrafted free agent, so that was an accident. And after Romo, they had Dak Prescott, which they took with a compensatory 4th-round pick, which means they weren't planning for him to ever be a starter, so they got lucky again. They've gotten lucky twice. But they also have never tried. If you're not picking a quarterback in the top half of the first round, you're not really trying to replace a quarterback. You can say you are, like, oh, yeah, we really like this guy that we got from wherever. But if you're not, just look around the league and where the vast majority of the quarterbacks come from. If you haven't used a high first-round pick, you haven't actually tried to replace quarterback, maybe they'd be great at it. Maybe they would identify the right guy, and maybe they would pick one. But Bill Barnwell, step 1, sign Dak Prescott. Because it would, if they franchise tag him, maybe you're a franchise tag guy. Although most of the haters are just to get rid of him, he's not good enough. Life as a Cowboys quarterback sucks because Romo had the same thing. You're really good to great quarterback, and if the team doesn't win enough games, it means you suck. It's a rough life. If the Cowboys wanted to franchise Dak, that would not make it easier to do a long-term deal, because once you franchised him once, he's just inching closer to another franchise tag that's worth a lot more, which is inching closer to another franchise tag, which there's no chance you'll pay. And your guaranteed money just goes up and up and up and up, because I'm close to being a real free agent now. It would cost him almost just under $60 million to tag him twice. And if he tagged him a third time, that third year would be about $46 million. So just get the deal done. Thanks. Number 2, according to Barnwell, transition tag Amari Cooper on the way to an extension. I don't hate transition tagging Amari Cooper, but I would rather franchise tag him, because then you have options. With the transition tag, all you're doing is agreeing to pay him, I'm going to guess here, the transition tag is probably like $16 million for 1 year. And if somebody signs him to a long-term deal, you can match it, or you can just let him walk. I like the idea of the franchise tag, which gives you the flexibility that if somebody offers him a good deal, you can look at them and say, all right, let's talk trade. What will you give me? And now I have the option. Do I want to pay him his market value and keep him around long term? Or would I like to accept some compensation from somebody and move in a different direction? Since the start of 2018, Dak with Amari Cooper on the field, 8.2 yards per attempt, passer rating of 102. With him not on the field, his yards per attempt goes from 8.2 to 7. And his passer rating goes from 102.3 to 89.5. So that's pretty big. I just wish I felt better about how he responds to adversity. I wish Stephen Jones hadn't shut down when I was trying to get him to explain what happened with how he's not on the field on the fourth down and he's playing less snaps than Michael Gallup and Randall Cobb in a game. Like, just tell me that he was banged up and you had to manage it. But that's not what they told me, and that's not what I've heard. I've heard that they didn't think he was playing well enough, and so they put in other guys, and that they wish they'd gotten Randall Cobb on the field for the fourth down, but they don't feel the same way about Amari Cooper. So he also, I don't believe, got along with Sanjay Lala's position coach. So there's a lot there. We got to unpack it, but you want to feel really good about him if you're going to pay him. Number 3 from Barnwell, rebuild the defensive line around DeMarcus Lawrence. So free agents from last year, Robert Quinn, Malik Collins, Michael Bennett, Christian Covington, Kerry Hyder, pretty much everybody. So your defensive line is DeMarcus Lawrence, Tyrone Crawford, and heck, you're going to talk about Tyrone Crawford. Do you want to save money? Tyrone Crawford makes a lot of money, and you could save a lot of money if you didn't have him. So Tank Lawrence is surrounded by Dorrance Armstrong, Joe Jackson, Antoine Woods, exclusive rights free agent, so he'll probably be yours, and Tristan Hill. That's your D-line. They got to build big time. And here is what Barnwell says about the defensive line. Mike Nolan just came over for the Saints, where he was the linebackers coach. There's not a flood of defensive linemen leaving New Orleans, but I wonder if the Cowboys might look at David Onyemata, who is a solid starter for the Saints, is likely to leave in free agency. Former Packers standout Mike Daniels might also look to reunite with new Dallas coach Mike McCarthy after a frustrating season in Detroit. In the much bigger picture, you can't count out the Cowboys in the Jadeveon Clowney pursuit, even if it means paying 2 defensive ends like franchise players. That's some Madden stuff. I like Clowney. I think last year he only had 3 sacks, but he's basically a 9-sack guy that is a monster against the run. So he's kind of Tank Lawrence. They're kind of similar, where they're not necessarily a burn and turn the corner guy for sacks, but they're power players. They can play the run. If I'm going to have him out there and then I can invest in a defensive tackle in the draft, that's a lot of fun. But Clowney's going to be a $20 million player by all accounts, and I don't think the Cowboys are swimming in those waters, but it's fun to think about. Sign a star defensive back, Barnwell says, for step 4 for the Cowboys. Right now, it doesn't look like they've got a bunch of interest in keeping Byron Jones, which is stupid. But let's see. Safeties Darian Thompson and Jeff Heath are free agents. The team seemed to signal it wanted to make a big investment at safety when they tried to add Jamal Adams. I don't know if the Jamal Adams negotiations will happen again, but maybe they will. But he says just based on their new coaching staff, and then he goes to guys that Mike Nolan has coached and Mike McCarthy has coached, Von Bell of the Saints, Clinton Dix with the Packers. I don't consider those stars. Picking number 17, they could target Grant Delpit. Todd McShay has him taking Xavier McKinney. Either way, he says it wouldn't be shocking to see the Cowboys looking towards safety in round 1. I don't mind that, but if you do it, please trade down to do it. Don't just take one. I think you can move down and get one of them, maybe your choice of them in a trade down. What we need is somebody to be coming up for the final quarterback. You need Jordan Love on the board at 17, and you need somebody to be wanting to make a move for that quarterback so that you can get a nice little return, maybe get a slight overpay from them. Get a 1, a 3, and a 4. Move down, still get whatever DB you want, and have added a couple of picks. That'd be nice. Find a solution at tight end as Barnwell's number 5. Obviously, Jason Witten's an old man, and hopefully he's not on the Cowboys next year. And I love him. He's got a case for the title of Mr. Cowboy. Jason Witten is awesome. He's a badass. He's also done. You can't have a guy who's getting 8 yards a catch or less when you have another tight end on the roster that can get you 12 to 14 yards per catch. It's Blake Jarwin time. So I'm not worried about finding an immediate solution at tight end, but Jarwin's been here a while too. So he may not be long for the team. This may be his last year as a Cowboy, but I got no problem with Blake Jarwin being the starting tight end. And if you want to go find your tight end of the future, it's a better draft at tight end than people are pretending. I don't have my names in front of me, but Harrison Bryant at Florida Atlantic, I have him as a second-round guy. I don't know where these guys are going to be drafted because I disagree with so many other people's rankings on tight ends this year. But I like Harrison Bryant, Florida Atlantic, 6'5", 250 pounds, tough after the catch, better blocker than people give him credit for, slot mismatch guy. And then Hunter Bryant at Washington, who's a smaller than Harrison Bryant, but he's also one of those big slots that's just sort of a mismatch guy out there. And then Cole Kmet, Bryson Hopkins, that's Purdue. Cole Kmet is Notre Dame. Asi, the tight end at UCLA. There's a bunch of inline options that can play. There's a bunch of slot mismatch guys that can play. You could totally use a 3rd or 4th round pick on a tight end if you're the Cowboys and maybe find a guy for the future if Jarwin's not going to be that guy. All right, leave in the comments what you want to talk about tomorrow. Without you, there's no video. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you click the little bell, the little notifications thing. You don't want to miss a video, do you? Check 1053thefan.com every day. And episode 1 of the G-Bag Nation featuring Brian Broaddus is coming up here today. Shout out to my homie Mike Bassick. Rest in peace on the KNC Masterpiece. I love you.